Hello there, good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's ongoing coverage of the primary election 2026. The election's on Tuesday, August 11th, in just a few weeks. My name is Bobby Lucier. This program is part of a series of candidate forums that we are providing you in advance of that election. These forums are made possible by our generous underwriting sponsors. Thank you so much to those folks. You can find all of our forums at cctv.org/primary or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel, where auto-generated captions are available. And make sure to subscribe to our channel to stay tuned into local democracy this election season. On tonight's program, we'll hear from three candidates running in the Democratic primary for Lieutenant Governor. Thank you all so much for being here. We've got Molly Gray, Esther Charleston, and Ryan McLaren. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a list of questions for each of you. The phone lines are also open. We do have a few callers already lined up here, but you can call in with your question for the three candidates tonight, 802-862-3966. We will screen your question to make sure that it's something that we haven't already covered, and also to make sure that your question is one that all three of the candidates here tonight can answer. We're going to make sure that each candidate here gets equal time to speak tonight. So I think that's, oh, and I also just want to mention about rebuttals. You'll each have 90 seconds to answer each question, and we will allow rebuttals only if one of you names someone else at the table tonight, but we're aiming to not do that and just have 90 seconds per question tonight. So let's start with 1-minute opening statements, and we'll start with you, Molly Gray.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Bobby, thank you. Thank you to everyone tuning in tonight. Esther, Ryan, good to see you again. My name is Molly Gray. I'm proud to be running for Lieutenant Governor. I want to share with folks what I've been up to for the last few years and why I'm seeking this office again. For those of you I don't know, I grew up in Orange County. I'm a proud product of Vermont's education system and have been working the last 20 years as a human rights lawyer and advocate, former lieutenant governor. But for the last 3 years, I've been helping to grow and lead an organization called the Vermont Afghan Alliance, helping new refugees move to the state, find housing and jobs. I've also become a mom and have been a caregiver to my mom. And I've seen up close both the cruelty of the Trump administration and the extreme economic pressures facing working families. So tonight, I hope to talk about healthcare, housing, and how the Lieutenant Governor's office can hold the line every single day against unlawful federal action.
Great. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Molly. Esther Charleston, your 1-minute opening statement.
Honored to be here. Thank you for having me. Good to see all of you. I am Esther Charleston. I am a wife, a mother, a small business owner, and a Vermonter by choice. Yes, a few years ago, I moved to Vermont and chose this place as a place where I can raise my children. And I'm happy to say it's been an adventure and amazing. And so it was in 2021 when I was elected for the Middlebury Select Board, where I was the youngest mom and the only renter, and I was able to name some serious gaps. In that time, I shifted the conversation, and I plan to do the same. Right now, we need a lieutenant governor that's going to build trust in our communities and be a bridge. And that's where I shine. Convening people, helping us have hard conversations, sit with the two truths we can't change, but move forward. That's my work.
Thank you so much, Esther. And Ryan McLaren, your opening statement.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. Esther, Molly, it's good to be with you. And I'm Ryan McLaren. I am running for Lieutenant Governor because of my parents and my kids. My parents managed to raise 3 kids in a 900 square foot house in Essex Junction, and they never had the opportunity to go to college, but they were determined to give their kids opportunities they never had. And so 40 years ago, they were able to buy a house for under $80,000 in Essex Junction. They were able to send their kids to great public schools. And I grew up on Dr. Dinosaur, so we didn't go bankrupt if we got sick, and had food assistance if we needed it. And my life was never guaranteed, but it was possible because it happened here in Vermont. But I'm running right now with a sense of urgency because what was possible for my parents back then would be virtually impossible for a family trying to raise kids today. And I just refuse to be the last generation of working class kid that could imagine living their dreams here in Vermont. So I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. I am ready to make it so when they graduate high school, they're able to make their lives here in our state.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. We do have at least one caller on the line with our first question of the evening. Hello there. Can you share with us your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, my name's Jordan. I'm calling from Burlington.
Hi, Jordan. What is your question?
Thank you. My question is actually on behalf of community member Marge Berthold. She's asking, how do you plan to support social services in Vermont that Vermonters want, but so that Vermonters are not overextended to reach these resources? Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. On behalf of Marge, we're going to start with Esther Charleston on this question about social services.
As Lieutenant Governor, our job is to preside over the Senate, put senators on committees, be the tie-breaking vote, and again, be the convener. And so social services is so important. As I traveled the state, I've learned and talked to different individuals who are house rich and cash poor. And so people are on fixed incomes. So as Lieutenant Governor, bringing people together, really advocating, making sure communities know what resources they have, working with what we have, and through partnership, that is how I would do that work in supporting social services, educating others, and partnering with communities and counties to make sure folks know what resources they have available to them.
Thanks so much, Esther. Ryan.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a really important one. And so much of what frustrates me, I think, about our political system today in Vermont and across the country is we have this real scarcity mindset. Everyone's trying to do more with less. And I am trying to build a culture of yes around the really important things that matter to working class people in Vermont, people like my parents. Social services is certainly one of those things. But if we're ever going to address social services, we have to address the underlying economic conditions that most Vermonters face. I talk about three things on this campaign trail more than anything. It's housing, it's healthcare, and it's hope. And housing and healthcare are the top material concerns for any family in Vermont, but they're really just foundational to the third thing, hope. Like, do we have hope that if we work hard, we can get ahead? That working people can do more than just struggle in the state to get by. And social services have made my life possible. I mentioned Dr. Dinosaur, I mentioned WIC, eating government cheese as a kid. And, you know, like I said, my life was never guaranteed, but it was possible because the infrastructure of opportunity that existed for my family here in Vermont added up to work for me. It doesn't add up anymore. And so we have to do everything all at once to make life more livable for working class people in Vermont. That means building more housing. That means expanding access to healthcare. And that means doing things that fix our structural deficit in how we raise money to make sure we're investing in social services that Vermonters rely on.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. And Molly, your thoughts on social services?
Jordan, thank you for calling. And Marge, thank you so much for your question. For the last few years, as I said in my opening, I've been working to help Afghan refugees who risked everything for our government resettle here in the state. And we had to start an employment program, a housing placement program, a program to support new Vermonters in accessing Medicaid or Medicare, and really having a very strong understanding of all of the nonprofits in the state that really rely on strong federal funding, but also state funding, and a recognition that with this federal government, we're losing a tremendous amount of support all the time. And so I see sort of a twofold challenge. One, we really have to work with our nonprofits to make sure they have the support that they need, that they're working collaboratively to meet the social services challenges that we have. And then every opportunity that we have to continue to invest in the workforce that is providing these services, be it nurses and healthcare professionals, be it individuals who are helping those who are accessing SNAP or affordable or accessible housing across the board. I mean, it comes back to our human infrastructure at the end of the day. And for me as a candidate, that's priority number one.
Thank you all so much. We have another caller here. Hi there, caller. Can you share your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, this is Connor calling from East Burke.
Great, thank you, Connor. And what is your question for all three candidates tonight?
My question is, could you each talk about a specific community intervention, so not a policy or a listening session or a roundtable, a specific community intervention that you helped design, develop, and implement that has helped Vermonters at the organizational or individual level?
Great, thank you so much for that great question, Connor. And we'll start with Ryan on a community intervention that you've worked on to help Vermonters.
I love the question, Connor, and really appreciate it, because this has been my work for my entire career. I've spent 15 years in public service in Vermont. My first job back in Vermont after college was as an AmeriCorps member for a reading mentoring program called Everybody Wins Vermont that brought adults into elementary schools to help embed a love of learning and reading with kids that needed it most. And so my job was to recruit volunteers to go into elementary schools to read to kids and to make a meaningful impact in their lives. And I've just been doing that my entire career. I worked 5 years in Governor Shumlin's administration, and I'm so proud to have helped design and implement the first law in Vermont that helped our migrant neighbors get driver's licenses, because back then, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it wasn't obvious that we shouldn't deport people for driving their kids to the doctor. And so I helped get that over the finish line in the legislative process and actually implement it at the Department of Motor Vehicles when I worked there. And then I've spent 10 years in Senator Welch's office just doing the work. Sometimes that's helping a constituent get a USDA loan over the finish line, which I've done hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. And then sometimes it's doing really big things, like I helped get a $5.5 million federal funding for a housing project, low-income housing project in Middlebury. Helped get funding for Tri Park Mobile Home Park in Brattleboro, or Craftsbury Saplings to help expand childcare in the Northeast Kingdom. So this has been my whole career, and I could talk about it forever, but my time is up.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Appreciate that. Molly.
Thank you, Connor, for the question. And I'll be really transparent about something. I wasn't sure I'd ever run for office again. I've had this really special pleasure of seeing the human impact, like the direct human impact. Actually, to go to the last caller's question, like the human services related work or social services related work of working with working with communities. Building on some of the great work that Ryan did when he was at the Vermont Department of Motor Vehicles at the Vermont Afghan Alliance, when the first Afghan arrivals came to Vermont, we saw a very significant need in the state for driving instruction. We actually still have a pretty significant drought for driving instruction in Vermont. And we worked to recruit new Afghan arrivals, actually an interpreter who spoke Pashto, Dari, and English, to become a licensed, trained driving instructor for other Afghans, including Afghan women, many of whom could not read or write in their own language and had to navigate, many of them actually here on their own, with kids on their own. And so we know in a state like Vermont that has a really tangible impact. If you have a car, you can get to work, you can bring your kids to school, you can get to doctor's appointments. And yeah, I guess like I've seen that like nitty gritty on the ground systems building work that I think is highly informative now in running for office and thinking about how systems work in the state and how they can be transformed to be much more effective. And I want to bring that experience back to the Lieutenant Governor's office if elected.
Great. Thank you, Molly. And lastly, Esther here.
So being a mom, I remember just moving to Vermont in Middlebury, and there was not enough child care spots. I had one child in Middlebury and another child in North Ferrisburg, 20 minutes away. Most of the community felt that struggle. And as a select board member, I am so grateful I was able to be a part of championing the Otter Creek Child Care Expansion Project. That was incredible. We had more than 15 spots open through that project so that folks can go to work and know that their children are being taken care of. And so I was a part of that. And that was because as a select board member and the youngest mom there, I was able to name, hey, we need more childcare options. Folks have to make the hard journey and make hard choices if there are none. And we need more people in the workforce and to have that choice. And so I am honored to be I was a part of that process, and happy to say that it's going well. They're doing great, and I'm grateful.
Great. Thank you all so much. Got a couple great questions from the phones. You can call in as a reminder. 802-862-3966 is the phone number. We do have another caller on the line. Hello there. How's it going? Can you share your name and where you're calling from tonight? Hello, are you there?
Hi, yeah, sorry about that. This is thanks for taking my call. This is Andrew from Burlington, calling to ask the candidates what their plan is to help protect Vermonters from unlawful federal action, specifically ICE, and what specific experience do they have in doing this sort of work?
Great, thank you so much, Andrew, for your question. I believe it's Molly's turn to start on this one.
Andrew, thank you so much. And as you know, even here in Burlington, we saw what happened on March 11th. We saw an ICE raid. Over the last few days, we've seen last week, multiple shootings across the country by ICE. And we have to, in Vermont, be extremely diligent in having the strongest possible armor in every statewide office, right? We see our Attorney General using her office every single day to hold the line against unlawful federal action. We see Mike Pichak, our treasurer, raising money to make sure immigrants can access attorneys. We see the Secretary of State making sure that we're not handing over voter data. We need a lieutenant governor who isn't casting the tie-breaking vote to send an acting Trump U.S. attorney to the Vermont Supreme Court, someone who wanted to have someone deported for exercising their free speech rights. I've seen it the last year and a half working with the Afghan Alliance, seeing ICE go after the Afghan community, seeing Vermont be the first state in the nation to hand over SNAP data and also to end SNAP. Maybe not the first state to hand it over, but certainly the first state to end it. Like, the next 3 years are going to be the absolute most dangerous of the Trump administration. I have the skills and experience, not only working with the community, but as an attorney, to make sure we also have the strongest possible armor in the lieutenant governor's office. And that's really, really important right now.
Great. Thank you so much, Molly. Esther Charleston, your thoughts on ICE and unlawful action for the federal government?
Well, this is personal to me. I am the daughter of immigrant parents, Anita and Glasha Chalestin, and so they are Haitian. I mean, the Haitian community has felt it, and this is not new to the United States. I do believe in holding the line also, and that we deserve more. All Vermonters, every person who chooses Vermont as their home deserves to be protected here. So for me, it's about building trust with those communities, because as lieutenant governor, again, you do not bring new legislation. The biggest thing that I believe we can do is really convene and build trust. So are we building trust with the communities already here? Do we have those relationships? And that is how we hold the line. Do we amplify and say, hey, ICE doesn't belong here? And are we protecting our children? Are we protecting our families? Are we protecting the people that call Vermont home? So that would be my work. It's something that I live with personally, have seen, and would fight for. Not allowing ICE to take a hold of Vermont at all.
Thank you, Esther. And lastly, Ryan, on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the only way we can protect our neighbors from an unlawful, lawless, really, federal regime, immigration regime, we have to do it both from the top down and the bottom up. So leaders have to lead. We have to describe the world as it is. What happened in Maine, being the dad of a 3-year-old, imagining, I can't even put into words how grotesque and inhuman that is, and how enraging it is for me as an American to have that being done in our name. And so just saying that out loud is so important. It's so important. And then demanding we do whatever we can here at home to prevent it from happening. That means unmasking federal agents here. That means demanding we do not comply with a federal government that is hell-bent on just like ravaging our immigrant neighbor communities left and right. And then from the bottom up, like there is actual tangible work we can do day in and day out. And I have been very proud to support our immigrant neighbors throughout my career. When the federal government took away food benefits from our Afghan neighbors, the Afghan Alliance called me. I got to help them get confirmation that they actually were entitled to it. And I've worked with migrant farm workers for my whole career, and so just supporting them on the ground here, day in and day out, is so important.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you all for your thoughtful answers on that question. We go back to the phones for our next question. Hello there. Can you share your name and where you're calling from tonight?
Yes, name is Chris, calling from South Burlington.
Hi, Chris. Can you share your question for all three candidates?
Yes, I understand that all the candidates have also sought the endorsement of the Progressive Party. Why did you do so, and what was the outcome?
Thank you so much for that question, Chris. And we'll start with Esther on this question. You're seeking the endorsement of the Progressive Party.
Yes, so I went through the process of going and seeking the endorsement of the Progressive Party. It's a party that has endorsed me in the past as I ran for statewide office 2 years ago, and a party that I believe in here, as well as being a Democrat. The outcome of that situation was they didn't endorse any of the candidates up here. They couldn't get to a majority. And so the work continues as we continue to build relationships and see people. And again, my goal is to always think of those as people are feeling the squeeze, everyday cost, education, and economic freedom, thinking about people needing to buy their first home here. A lot of families, it is out of reach for them. So how are we doing that? How are we working together? As Lieutenant Governor, once you're elected, it's no longer about party. It's about bringing people together, and that is my intention. That is where I thrive, and that is my hope for us.
Thank you, Esther. Ryan, your experience in seeking the Progressive endorsement?
Yeah, I actually didn't go seeking the Progressive Party endorsement. And when I did go to their state committee meeting, and I was explicit with them there that I have been and continue to be a small p, capital D, Democrat, and had worked with many people in that room on a number of elections and a number of political endeavors. But it would be disingenuous of me to go to the Progressive Party and tell them I was a member of their party. And so what I did was go to tell them what my values were. I've spent my entire career working for single-payer universal health care in Vermont. I was endorsed by Bill McKibben because I am, I believe, the biggest champion of renewable energy and climate mitigation efforts here in Vermont in our race. And I've spent a career doing that and have worked hand in glove with folks all over the place, progressives, Democrats, Republicans, and that whether or not they endorsed me, our values were aligned. And so, I think the outcome was I got the most support from the Progressive Party because I went there and I was honest with them about who I was, what I believed, and I have a career of working hand in glove with anyone that wants to make this place better that folks in that room recognized. And I was just open and transparent, and I think that's what most people want.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And lastly, Molly, your experience with the Progressive Party in this race.
Chris, thank you so much for your call. The Progressive Party didn't endorse any candidate, and we all went to their meeting and shared our values, our top priorities. For me, that's universal primary care as a very, very important healthcare priority. It's making sure Vermonters can afford housing. It's making sure that all Vermonters are safe and protected with every tool that we've got from unlawful federal action. And I'm focused on building the strongest, largest big tent coalition. And that means that I may not agree with every Vermonter from every party on everything, but I'm going to try extremely hard to find as much unity as possible, because in this moment, it really comes back to how we're showing up in the state for each other and focusing on our resilience and our resistance against those who don't want us to succeed as a state or who want to come after us as a state or people in the state individually. And so this is a moment where I care very little about labels, care very, very much about protecting rights and building the strongest possible coalition. And I was proud to go to the meeting and proud to seek the endorsement and proud to be building an extremely strong coalition. Even, our Revolution, a national progressive organization, recently endorsed my campaign, and I'm proud of that.
Great. Thank you, Molly. We have about 20 minutes left, and if you'd like to call in with a question for the three candidates in the Democratic primary for Lieutenant Governor tonight, you can call in 802-862-3966. And we'll go to the phones again with our next caller. Hi there. Can you share your name and where you're calling from tonight?
Hi, I'm Nathaniel. I'm calling from Burlington.
Hi, Nathaniel. What's your question?
I think that Trump's assault on our right to vote is one of the greatest threats to democracy, and that we all need to do what we can to preserve and exercise our right to vote. And as Democrats, I assume that everyone in the race voted for Clinton, Biden, and Kamala Harris against Trump. Can you confirm this and tell us how often you have voted in the past?
Great. Thank you so much, Nathaniel, for that question. We're going to start with Ryan on your voting record in the presidential elections.
All of the above, Nathaniel, and many elections in between. And you know, I think what this speaks to, frankly, is how engaged are you in what's happening here in Vermont day in and day out. And I say all the time, I'm running for lieutenant governor to do something, not to be someone. And this opportunity in this role feels like an extension of my 15-plus year career in public service in Vermont. I served on school boards, so I voted in every school election, and I served at the state level and at the federal level, and I was a coach at Burlington High School for 15 years. I have just been deeply engaged in the community day in and day out, and a reflection of that is the fact that I've been voting here my entire adult life. And so this is just an opportunity to continue my effort to make this place better, because I feel so grateful for the life that I have that was made here in Vermont and was only possible, I believe, because it was made here in Vermont. And so my work in public service, my participation in our democracy is not the effort of one campaign cycle. It is not the effort of one person's ambition. It is the effort of trying to build a community and to give back to the community that's given me so much.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Molly, your thoughts on this question and record in presidential elections?
Sure. Nathaniel, thank you so much for calling in. And I'm proud to have voted in recent presidential elections. It's no secret to anyone that I have not been a consistent voter in my younger life. And what I can say is that I am so proud to be regularly championing access to the voting booth. We have now in Vermont same-day voter registration, which is incredible. We have vote by mail. I believe we have universal vote by mail in our primaries, and I wish that every voter in the state also got a primary ballot. It's something I think we can push for. I'm a huge advocate for a Vermont Voting Rights Act, because as we know, voting is a state issue. It's a time, place, manner that's determined by states. So what we do in Vermont really matters, especially as you see the federal government trying to do things like the SAVE Act and even like restrict funds that may come to states for housing based on handing over voter data. So I can't change my past, but I can continue showing up with my best possible self. And I actually think it makes me a stronger, more informed candidate, and will continue to make me, if I'm reelected, a stronger, more informed lieutenant governor.
Thanks, Molly. You have 20 seconds left. Do you just want to share that the question was asked about voting for Clinton, Biden, and Kamala Harris?
Voting for who I voted for?
Yeah, in those elections.
Sure. So I voted for Kamala Harris and voted for Biden, and then I missed the election in 2016 where Clinton was not elected and Trump got elected. And that will always be my cross to bear.
Thanks so much for
Yeah.
clarifying. Esther Charleston, your voting record in those elections.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to travel the state. And one of the conversations I had was with a woman who's lived in Vermont, raised 2 children, and has never voted. Is she alone in this? No. Talking to people who are not engaged. And after our conversation, she decides she wants to vote. And so that will be my work as lieutenant governor, to really engage with folks who feel disenfranchised, who feel like their voice doesn't matter. Not just building the table in Montpelier, but also going into the communities, really talking to folks, really letting them know that their voices matter. Not only showing up, before the election, but even after the election. Having different sets of communities knowing my name, knowing that they can call me by name, and knowing who I am. So that is how I intend to show up. That is how I intend to be as an elected official. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of Vermont politics and doing that work and engaging in that work. And so I'm a proud Democrat, continue to be, and that's the work that I will hold on to and continue to do.
Thanks so much, Esther. Just on those 2016, 2020, and 24 elections, I don't know if I caught, are you declining to answer how you voted in those elections, or did you vote for those Democrats?
One, I am young, and I'm declining to answer.
Great, thanks so much. All right, we have another caller here on the line. We've got about 15 minutes left. Hi there, caller. Can you share your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, this is Avery calling in from Milton.
Hi, Avery. Did I have that right, Avery?
Yes.
Great. And what's your question for all three candidates tonight?
Yeah, my question is that I heard that some of the candidates in this race were taking corporate PAC money, but I don't see any corporate PAC contributions in the campaign finance filings in this race. I know Molly has taken corporate PAC money in her previous races, and I'd like to know where each candidate stands on this issue.
Great. Thank you so much for that question, Avery. And we'll start with Molly Gray.
Yeah.
90 seconds, your position on accepting corporate PAC dollars.
Avery, thank you so much for calling in and for Milton. I never have accepted corporate money. I've never accepted corporate PAC money. I'm wondering if you're thinking about association money. I have when I ran for Congress. I did receive money from different associations. I will always denounce super PAC funding or spending in our elections. You can go through our campaign finance reports from this cycle so far, and there is not a dime of corporate or corporate PAC money in there, and I'm very, very proud of that. And I also have been a huge advocate for what's called the corporate power reset, where Vermont potentially could join Montana, California, and Hawaii in reforming our corporate charter to end the power of corporations to spend in elections. I'm a champion for it. I would champion it as lieutenant governor. I think it's one of the most harmful things that's happening in our elections today, including here in Vermont.
Great. Thank you so much, Molly. Ryan McLaren, your experience with corporate PAC donations, your position on it?
Yeah, I have none. I'm not taking corporate PAC money, won't take corporate PAC money, never have, never will. This is the first time I'm running in an election where I've had to fundraise. I've ran for school board a couple times, and so, it's never been a problem. And honestly, this is the worst thing that happened to our democracy in a very long time was the Citizens United decision from the Supreme Court that treated money as speech and corporations as people. It's not, they're not. And the erosion of our democratic norms over the last 20 years can be tied directly to the influence of money in our politics. And if we're going to succeed, if I'm going to succeed in my effort to be lieutenant governor, it's because of Vermonters and a community of people I've been able to build over my 15-plus year career in public service here. And relationships I've been able to build, whether they're small business owners, teachers, farmers, whoever. Raising money is the worst part of campaigning, I think. Other people on this stage might agree. But it allows you to reach out into the world and try and connect with people that you've been able to work with and build a team around some endeavor and what the future of Vermont looks like. And so that's what I'm trying to do. It's based here in Vermont by Vermonters.
Thank you, Ryan. And Esther, your position on accepting corporate PAC donations.
Corporate PAC money is not an issue for me. I don't believe in accepting it and have it in the past. And I do believe in getting to a place where we're doing campaign financing where folks are limited on how much they can raise, and so that folks have equal opportunity. So do I believe in corporate PAC money? No, I do not. Have I accepted it in the past? No, I have not. Will I accept it in the future? No, I will not.
Great. Thank you all so much. We're going to hop over to the lightning round questions here. So these are quick questions. I know you all can speak at length about all of these questions. We're going to try and keep it short. Okay, so 15 seconds here. Yes or no is how they're intended to be answered. And let's see, our last question, we had Molly start, so the next one will start with Esther, but we'll just kind of be rapid fire here. So starting with Esther, do you support a single payer healthcare system for Vermont?
Yes, I do. And ideally, having universal primary care, making sure that everybody gets to see a doctor at no cost is the dream and what I would work towards.
Thank you. Ryan, do you support single payer?
Yes, absolutely. If I could wave a wand and change one thing tomorrow, it would be universal single payer healthcare for everyone in the country.
Great, thank you. And Molly?
Yes, and I put forward a comprehensive plan to fund universal primary care as a first step.
Okay, yes, across the board on that one. Starting with Ryan on this next one, do you support a wealth tax or new taxes on high earners to address Vermont's budget needs, yes or no?
Yes, income inequality has never been larger. Folks like my family are going to get ahead trying to raise kids today. We have to make sure the wealthy pay their fair share. I've introduced a version of Zohran Mamdani's pied-à-terre tax where we're making luxury second homeowners pay their fair share.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Molly?
Yes, I specifically support recouping the Trump tax cuts and investing that funding specifically in a universal primary care system.
Great, thank you, Molly. And Esther, wealth tax or new taxes on high earners?
Yes. And I've seen it happen in our neighboring state, Massachusetts, and where the state was able to recoup millions and invest in education, transportation, and infrastructure.
Great, thank you so much. Do you support restricting state and local cooperation with federal immigration enforcement, starting with Molly?
Absolutely, and I'll bring all of the experience I have to bear to do just that as Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm sorry, Esther's next.
Yes. And I believe in going back to the communities and making sure that people are feeling safe and seen and building trust.
Thank you. And Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned this earlier, but we need to get caught trying in unmasking federal agents here in Vermont, too.
Great. Thank you all. Next question, do you support lifting restrictions on land use to promote housing and other economic development? We're starting with Esther.
Can you repeat the question?
Do you support lifting restrictions on land use to promote housing and other economic development? So lifting environmental regulations and restrictions on land use.
Yes, we need 30,000 more homes for those who are already here, and we're recruiting more. So yes, finding that balance.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yes, we can do it, and we should make permanent the broader, the Act 250 exemptions and Act 181.
Great, thank you. And Molly?
Yes, while also focusing on smart growth principles and building housing where we need it most, and we have the infrastructure to do it. So building up and not out wherever possible.
Great, thank you. Next, starting with Ryan, would you support a path to paid family leave?
Yes, I was the beneficiary of paid family leave when I had both my daughters, and when I broke my back when I was paralyzed. It changed my life, and everyone deserves it.
Great. And Molly?
Yes, I support universal paid family and medical leave, and was a champion for it as Lieutenant Governor and will be again if elected.
Great. Thank you. And Esther, paid family leave?
Yes, definitely. As chair of the Vermont Commission on Women, we are a part of the coalition, so we're engaging in that work now.
Great, thank you. And last lightning round question here, should the Lieutenant Governor take public positions on legislation while presiding over the Senate? And we're starting here with Esther.
Yes. So using the office to also be an amplifier, taking a stand, and really supporting communities is part of the work.
Great, thank you. Ryan?
Yes, absolutely. The job's to lead, and you can ensure a fair process while also being clear on what your values and principles are.
Great, and Molly?
On this one, I actually have to disagree with my colleagues. While presiding over the Senate, physically presiding, the Lieutenant Governor should not be. Actually, the rules kind of dismiss that. The role of the presiding officer is to be a neutral arbiter and to make sure that things happen according to the rules. But outside of the chamber, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole beauty of the office and the platform, is to really advocate for and use all of the tools to push legislation.
Great. Thank you all so much for keeping those responses short. We've got about 5 minutes left here, so I think we probably should, we'll do one more question here, and maybe we'll do 60 seconds, just so we can also squeeze in closing statements at the very end. And the question here is, Lieutenant Governor presides over the Vermont Senate and serves as a tiebreaker on the 30-member body. The office has limited formal powers. How do you define the role, and how would you use the office to serve constituents? And we'll start with Molly.
Yeah. The role has these very specific constitutional powers that you've already outlined, and we know from the tie-breaking vote that happened this year with the current lieutenant governor that can really change the course of the state. Madeline Kunin, who's supported my campaign, she had a tie-breaking vote on funding Planned Parenthood. But in this moment, we need a lieutenant governor who's going to help Vermonters understand what is right, what is wrong, what is lawful, what is not when we face federal action, working with other statewide elected officials, and be extremely focused on the public investments in healthcare and housing, working with the legislature and communities to make sure that they get across the line, supporting working families and lowering costs. And Lieutenant Governor can be a part of that as a real champion.
Great. Thank you, Molly. Esther, your thoughts on how you would use the office?
So I believe the biggest power of the office is to convene and bringing people together, building trust. Right now, with what's going on nationally, trust is not there. Communities are feeling disenfranchised, not really wanting to connect. As I made calls all across the state, hearing folks say, you know what, I just turn off the TV and just want to look outside. How are we building trust? And that's what I believe we need to do. We need a lieutenant governor that's going to show up in communities, not just during election, but even after. Build trust, not only with communities, but also with partners, and move us forward. And I'm the only one here who can do that work and has been doing that work for the past 15 years, whether it be in higher ed, in public schools, and as a small business owner.
Thank you so much, Esther. And lastly, Ryan, how would you use the office?
Sure. I would use the office to lead and to get things done. Like, this is a role that I view as basically a public advocate, the people's lobbyist in the building. Every other person in that building is either elected to represent a constituency, a particular part of the state, or they're a lobbyist that's sent there paid for by some special interest, both good and bad. But there's one role in that building, in the process, that can advocate for the people across the board, what matters most to working people across Vermont, and I think that's Lieutenant Governor. The City of New York elects a citywide office of the public advocate with many of the same responsibilities, whose charge it is to advocate for the people in the legislative process and to get things done. And that's been a version of what I've been doing for Senator Peter Welch, who's endorsed my campaign. For the last 10 years. I go out into Vermont, I talk to Vermonters about what matters most to them, and I make sure that what's happening in the legislative process actually impacts their lives. And so that's what I can do in this role.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We have just a few minutes left, so really quickly, 30 seconds, just how can folks find out more about your campaign? We're going to start with Esther Charleston.
Again, Esther Charleston, wife, mother, small business owner, and a Vermonter by choice. Please check out charlestonforvermont.com to learn more.
Great. Thank you so much. Ryan McLaren.
Yeah, Ryan McLaren, I'm talking about three things: housing, healthcare, and hope. And I still have hope because I was paralyzed 9 years ago, and I walked into this studio because at the hardest times of my life, I didn't give up hope. I got up every day and I just tried to make things better. That's what I've been doing in my career. That's what I can do in this office. And if you're inspired to join our team, it's McLarenforvermont.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. And Molly Gray.
Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Molly Gray. I'm proud to be running for Lieutenant Governor. This is a moment where Vermonters need to choose their fighter, and the next years of the Trump administration are going to be the hardest. I have a proven track record of fighting for human rights. I'm a mom, I'm a caregiver. I will always fight for working families and to lower costs. You can learn more by going to mollyforvt.com, but don't be an observer. This is a moment where it's all hands on deck. I hope you'll get involved, make a plan to vote, and get out there. We need you. We need all of us now in figuring out the tough things ahead for the state. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Molly Gray, Esther Charleston, Ryan McLaren, our candidates in the Democratic primary for Lieutenant Governor. And thank you for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's ongoing coverage of local elections. The primary election is Tuesday, August 11th, and then you can tune in right here to Town Meeting TV the next day at 4 o'clock for a recap of the results of that election. Hope you get out there to vote, and thanks so much for watching and sharing Town Meeting TV.